going on, everybody? So I've been asked by a bunch of people to do a walkthrough of everything that has changed on the race car, and there is a lot. So this video is for all of you guys. So as you can see, the outside really has not changed much. Everything's pretty much the same. I haven't done anything on the body yet. She does need love. She's getting old. I didn't take care of her when I was younger, so unfortunately I'm paying for that right here. So, but soon Bill puts on the OG Carlton fender flares. So we'll pop the hood so you guys can see all the changes. Oh, there she is. Let me put this up. So there's pretty much 3 big changes that I've made with this that have made the most impact. Obviously, it's the turbo, intake manifold, and the heads. Totally redone. Before, I was running an STI intake manifold, just a plain J1. The only thing that was done to it was the inside was poured and polished by Grimspeed. How they do this is they run a water sand mix through it, polishes the insides. Thing worked great, but I needed something to flow a little bit more. So this is a NA long runner intake manifold off the 04-05 2.5 RSs. These things, if you look at the CFM flow ratings on these versus the $1,200 Process West intake manifolds, these flow very, very closely to those. And you have a massive price difference. The only problem is you have to do some serious fabricating. Because this originally started as a WRX and I've converted it over, I'm still running a 16-bit ECU, so it still uses cable throttle and all that fun stuff. So this whole piece that you see right here is a custom CNC piece that I had to weld onto there. But it's for my 70mm Boomba throttle body. Yeah, so also massive shout out to Sean Kennedy for custom fabbing that for me. Works perfect, dude. The other stuff that I had to do with this, because it's cable driven, I had to weld a tab onto here, 2 cables, Austin Blodgett, maybe this custom plate here so I can still have cruise control. That is pretty much the intake manifold. Obviously it has no TGVs, which is nice, don't have to deal with any of that crap. Had to relocate the fuel pressure regulator. The other stuff I had to do was I had to re-weld the fitting for the IAT sensor. The blow-off valve had to get completely removed and relocated, which honestly it's in a better place now. Before it was running off a small nylon tube that came off the fitting and I just hated it. It was ugly. So cut this, re-welded all that. Charge piping. So this entire system has completely changed. Before, actually I'll show you right here. Before this used to go underneath here, and then it'd go under the intake manifold. It would come out here, go down this way, and then it would come back out through here, come back up through here and through there. It was a cluster. I hated it. So if I can find a piece to compare this to, here it is. Okay, this was the diameter of the old stuff. You can see how small it is. This is the new. There's 2 different sizes. Huge difference. Big difference. So now because of that, this flows way more, way less restrictive. I had to do all the welding and fabricating on it, which I posted pictures of. I kept the pair and front mount intercooler. That's the same, even though I'm thinking about getting a smaller one, because honestly it's a little bit overkill. But now it goes up, charge piping comes up through here, goes all back, comes up to here, straight through right to the turbo. So it's a lot shorter of a run, makes a huge difference on the lag compared to the old setup, along with the new turbo. This turbo is pretty much the same as my last one. It's still a 6266, however, this one is brand new and it's the Gen 2 6266. So this has a billet compressor wheel, different blade design. The cold side and the hot side housings are a little bit redesigned. Not really that much different, but they flow a little bit better. So it spools up a lot quicker. The other thing I added in here was the oil pressure regulator for the turbo. Now, this suggestion came via Ryan Rice. I didn't even know this existed. Precision makes an awesome turbo, super tough, considering that my old one took the amount of anti-lag I gave it and it never failed. However, they make shit oil seals that come with these. So they constantly blow oil seals. My other one, it blew 3 times and got tired of replacing it. So this setup pretty much provides 40 psi of oil to the turbo at all times, no matter how much psi you're producing off the engine. If you're at 40 or over 40, this stays at 40, which is the optimum oil pressure pretty much for any of your journal and ball bearing turbos. Now, the nice thing about this versus a restrictor, yes, it can lower your psi to where it's not flowing as much, but you also lose volume, so you can still overheat the turbine shafts and bearings over time. So this keeps a proper amount of volume flowing while keeping it at 40 psi. And the nice thing about this is it allows you to run different drain tube setup. You can run, one that's not as big. It doesn't have to be directly going down to the engine, which is hard with this setup. I kind of had to come off the turbo and go back around like this. So this works perfect. It's worked awesome. The other change I made was the downpipe. This used to be a 4-bolt with a gasket, and it was a pain in the ass. The gasket, I could never get it to seal right. The bolts were a pain, so I cut all that off, welded a V-band onto the housing, onto the downpipe, fixed that. So now that's V-band, as well as the up pipe. The up pipe and the header. The header is switched over to equal length. Yes, I know, equal length, no soupy sound, blah, 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 but honestly, this one hasn't lost a lot of the rumble. Definitely sounds more inline 4-y, but the benefit is all your cylinders run at a more even temperature, and you have even pulses going up to the turbo, which makes it spool quite a bit quicker. I've noticed a huge difference with this, and it's probably ties in with the heads and everything else I've done here. I'm hitting full boost, which is almost 30 pounds of boost now. Around 4,000 RPM, where before I was hitting that around 5,000 RPM. And even though this has an 8,200 RPM red line, that's still a long ways to wait for the fun stuff to kick in. The last huge difference on this is pretty much the heads. The heads are JDM version 6, God, this is a mouthful, JDM version 6 STI 2.0 big port heads. These are pretty much the biggest turbo heads you can get. They have, the ports on them are massive, way bigger than the STIs, way bigger than the stock EJ205s. They're humongous. If I had something here to compare them to, it's just stupid. They're giant. Along with that, this has a full comp cam beehive valve train system. Stock size valves, titanium springs, retainers. The stock size valves hold up to anti-lag a lot better, which, yes, I still have the anti-lag system in this, but it's turned off. It's not going to get ran, because ultimately last time that's what ended this thing at Wicked Big Meat, is when I turned it up to the max. Whoops. Yeah, didn't like that very much. And now a video of Fat Catastrophe. Piston's fucked. It didn't like that very much. So, still running the Brian Crowder 272 cams from my old build and ARP head studs. These heads are set up for around 1,000 plus horsepower. So they are not the weak link in this system. Honestly, the short block is the weak link in this system. The short block can handle a crap ton of power though. It's a version 7 EJ207 short block. So the differences between this one versus the version 8 and the version 9 and the version 6, this has forged pistons. It's the only version that has forged pistons. The 8 and 9 got an updated crankshaft that has cross-plane ports, but this thing, for what I'm using it for, it's plenty strong enough. These blocks have been pushed to 500 wheel and 30 plus PSI multiple times and survive with no issues. They're kind of a diamond in the rough, little hidden gem, which is why, honestly, I like the 2-liter setup better, because it's a lot cheaper to make big power on these compared to a 2.5, where you have to go IAG or get a custom block built. It's just insane. The only thing besides that upgraded in the block is the Tomy oil pan baffle, which also acts as a block stiffener. It has the Tomy oil pan windage tray and a Killer Bee oil pickup tube. Still running just a regular 10 millimeter STI oil pump, because anything bigger than that, the 11, the 12, it's way overkill for what I'm running. I have no AVCS, and even with AVCS, the 10 mil is still plenty big enough. People think that you constantly need to run a bigger oil pump to solve your issues. Well, that's not always the case. You need to run an oil pump that meets your oil demands. Basically, your bypass valve that are in these pumps, you need to make sure that's not constantly open. This one opens at 85 psi, and when I'm doing a full throttle pull, I'm hitting 80 psi. So the relief valve is not open, which is good, because when the relief valve in these pumps opens, it sends the oil back around to where the pump is taking in the oil from the pickup tube. The problem with that is that the oil gets aerated, it gets bubbled, it starts to overheat. Oil overheats, thins out, doesn't lubricate. That causes all kinds of issues over time. If you're running an oversized pump that's pushing too much pressure for your application, you're going to get the same thing. That bypass valve is going to constantly be open, it's going to constantly be aerating your oil, overheating it, and it's just going to lead to bad things. So you don't always need a bigger oil pump for your setup. This is perfect for this. Other than that, everything else is still the same. Still running water meth. It's not really water meth, it's just straight meth from Snow Performance. It likes it the best with no mix, just straight. Other than that, that's about it. So I should have honestly done this setup in the first place instead of waiting this long to do this, because this was the proper way to do it. It's a huge difference with how it performs, night and day. It's so much smoother with the equal length header, so much smoother with this setup. The boost comes on almost 1,000 RPMs quicker. I've never been more happy with how this car is performing, and I'm honestly scared to see what it does after it gets the final tune from Ryan Rice at Portland Performance. So it's gonna be wild. So that is my walkthrough for this thing. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you next time.